Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Pirate University. Everybody, hands in the air. We are at our final piece. This is what we call the client experience. So it's our panel with actual clients so that we can discuss other things about our events that we did not cover in this 3 days of technical training. So as I was discussing with our panelists, we've spent the last 3 days building a show from the ground up. We started with a blank warehouse, and now we have a stage set that we're streaming and have an in-person audience, so it's a hybrid event just like most of the events that we actually work on these days. So let me introduce you to our panelists. First, to my right, we have Gail Greaves, who many of you know. She's the Director of Special Events at the Caramore Center for Music and Arts in Katonah. And of course, prior to Caramore, Gail was the Director of Public Events at the New York Botanical Garden. And she is also about to have her second child. So everybody put your hands together. And to Gail's right, Dan Parenti, who also a lot of you know as well. And he was on AVX episode 13, so go back to YouTube and watch it. But Dan is the president of Bookham Dano Productions, which specializes in event production and talent booking. In 2020, Bookham Dano won the BizBash Event and Style Award for the best gala design of the last decade. Ooh. You don't get that too often. So the Clio Award, 60th Anniversary Award event, Dan Parenti. Thank you. And our final panelist, who I have known for a very long time, Charisse Jervis-Hill, president and founder of Events to Remember and PR to Remember. They specialize in conceptualizing, managing, and executing events and PR campaigns for corporate, nonprofit, and municipalities. So please welcome Charisse. And you guys remember how much fun she had at our holiday party, too. So, very good. Well, we're going to get started if you guys are ready.
Yep.
Fantastic. All right, so maybe we'll start. We're going to go this direction. Let's start by talking about how you first got involved in the events industry. So, Gail, maybe tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this.
Well, I was a biology major in college, so the pathway should be pretty clear. No, from the biology, I think I was always interested in the outdoors, wound up at the New York Botanical Garden doing public programs and trying to share my love of nature and science with the audiences that came and attended. Did the public programming aspect, working with the public audience for about 12 years, and then was interested in learning more about the fundraising aspect of a nonprofit organization and found my way to Caramore, which is the Center for Music and the Arts, so focus on concerts and performances as well as the historic aspect of arts in our home. And so that's how I got to where I am.
That's pretty cool. That's an unusual path, I think, for most of the people in this room. So that's really great, though. Thank you. Dan, how about you? How'd you get involved in this?
Out of college, I moved to New York, wanting to be a comic book artist, believe it or not. But I got hired by a school alumni in his small production company, literally be like a coffee boy, go get coffee. But I learned a lot. They did a lot of stuff on VH1 about like booking talent. They produced comedy festivals around New York, so I learned as much as I could. And after that, I'm dating myself, that was back when Details magazine was like the men's magazine of the time. So I got in with those guys for a year, kind of helping them. I got in to help them do some PR work. And I saw that they were outsourcing a lot of stuff to outside event companies. I was like, I can probably figure out how to do this for you. So I spent a year there doing events, both coasts, and that's back when Maxim magazine was first picking up steam and launching in the US. And I saw that, and I was like, I've got to be your event guy when the time comes. And I would just beat their door down, like, we don't even have a budget yet, we don't even come out every month yet. And I was like, whenever you're ready, I'm your guy. So the first thing they hired me for was just to get prizes for an online contest. And once I got in, it's kind of what I made of it in those first 6 or 7 years, creating the Maxim Super Bowl party and the Hot 100 event and things like that that are still running to this day.
Wow. And
after my time at Maxim, I realized I kind of had gone as far as I could go. And I wanted to go do different things in my own stuff. So I started my own company, which was back in 2005 or 4, something like that. And a lot of the clients that I worked with at Maxim knew I was behind a lot of those things. So out of the gate, my first big project, I worked a lot with Coors Light, and they said, we have a program coming up. Do you want to bid for it? Sure. So flew myself out to Colorado. I bid against 4 other companies that rolled in with like 10 people and, presentation. I was just me with my laptop in a room with like 30 people. And I pitched in my idea, and I beat all the others, and I got a $1.4 million program out of the gate. I'm like, I can clearly do this, It's always going to be this easy, But it wasn't. But that's kind of the thing that was able to launch me and show I could do this and get real deal clients out there and continue executing and use the resources I'd found over the years to keep doing cool things that interested me and that were different and interesting. So here I am how many years later?
And here you are,
Here
on
I
the
am.
big stage
Here
at
I
Pirate
am.
University.
I've made it.
You have really made it now. No, that's
Exactly.
pretty awesome. Pretty
Yep.
awesome story. Imagine that's your first gig.
Exactly.
And Charisse, why don't you tell us how you got into this world?
So for me, it was more so looking for something that kind of worked with my schedule. I was in college at night and it needed kind of something to do work-wise, and was working corporate for Philip Morris, kind of in the events department, government affairs, and loved it. And then from that, just transitioned, stayed in the corporate world, and, just like this fly, I made my way through.
Well, unfortunately, our friend's not a fly, but we're hoping that we might be able to stomp him out. But
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry, continue.
So, corporate, Philip Morris, MetLife, really my foundation came from corporate events. And then after September 11th, working corporate, we all know industry got clobbered, no one wanted to fly,
Yep.
had a lot of relationships in the city, and really leveraged those. And a few years after that, started Events to Remember. And it's been 19 years. My third child, I like to call ETR. So, and Best of Westchester event planner for Westchester County. So excited.
Yeah, you've had a good run. Lots of awards. Excellent job. Excellent work. Hey, it's pretty cool though how everybody comes in from different directions, right? And that's what we've been talking about for days now. Is like how kind of most of the people who are in our side of the world have come from different backgrounds of photography, videography, artists, theater, a lot of music. There's many different directions, but somehow they land here, and it's interesting. But maybe we'll discuss kind of the different types of events too, because you guys all handle different types of events. And fortunately, we're able to work with you on these events, so we have a good idea. But maybe, Charisse, we'll start with you. What types of events are typical for you?
For us, we do a ton of nonprofit events, so fundraising, galas, benefits. We do a lot of business building expo type events for some of our entrepreneurial clients, municipalities. I would say those are, for the most part, that's kind of our sweet spot. A few social events, but not many. Most of our events are on the corporate and nonprofit side.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And typically, what's your role in these events?
Managing logistics, so helping the client build their run as show, providing day of support, really consulting and strategizing best way to move the event forward. We don't get too into decor and, we hire out for that, but really just kind of helping them build the programming itself and really moving the event from the beginning to the end.
Got it. Okay. All right. Gail, on your side, what types of events do you typically work on? Because I would imagine they're a little different.
So at Caramore, doing the fundraising, our biggest event is our gala, which is our opening night, and about 400 to 500 people. And so that aspect is managing all of our different vendors, bringing in our caterers, our AV, but also working with our outreach to our invitees and managing RSVPs, managing our table hosts' needs, and they're needing to get us their guests' information so that we can communicate with them and make sure everybody has the right information. So there's an added layer of communicating to the audience directly.
Is it different when you're in a public space, like, especially like you came from the Garden, which of course is I don't even know if it's quasi-government or what the deal is, but it's a public environment, which is not necessarily the same as some private spaces.
Sure. So when I was at the New York Botanical Garden, I was working with the public audience, which could be anybody who walked in the gate that day. You know, I could maybe anticipate how many people were showing up for a program based on numbers from last year, or how many ticket sales there were, what the weather was like, you know, because these are all outdoor venues. But, you know, I just kind of had to be ready with a set number of chairs and be ready if more people showed up and how to deal with them. But at least at Caramore, my events have a set guest list and account, and so I know a little bit more on that aspect of what to expect. But the guests always do bring in surprises.
Yeah, well, they're patrons of the arts,
Sure.
so. And on the actual music portion, like the Venetian Theater, does that involve, like, do you get involved in the certain planning for that?
So even though I'm at the music venue, I don't work with booking any of the artists or performers. I'm not on that side
Okay.
of the production. So my events are happening either after, before, or at the same time. So in some senses, there's a challenge of working with the different teams on site for two events happening at the same time, so.
Yeah, that's got its own set of challenges, I would imagine.
So yeah, there's our public audience that comes to Caramore for the performance, and then I have our special event guests that are coming to the dinner, you know, that are happening at the same time, picnicking and parking over here for them, you know, parking and dinner and cocktails for us over here, and so having to figure out how to message the arrival information to both and to accommodate the needs of both, which are very different, and make everybody still feel special.
Yeah, that requires a certain talent, I think, in order to keep the peace and yet make everybody feel special.
Sure.
It's very good. And Dan, what types of events are you typically involved in?
It's a real range, you know. I'm still doing this because I still look for different things to do, you know. So I'll do things like you mentioned, the Clio Awards. I do about 6 of those a year around the country, different incarnations of that, sports awards, entertainment awards, out at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles. So I do a lot with those folks. I'll do fabrication projects. We just did a big project for the Jersey Devils in the Prudential Center out in New Jersey. We fabricated a giant interactive touchscreen sort of situation. We produced TED Talks for those clients. So, but then I'll go up to, you know, I've worked with a lot of these guys. One of my bigger clients is Synchrony Financial in Stamford, Connecticut. And so we'll do things like, you know, the beginning of this summer, myself and your team, they had built a whole new town hall space, but they had nothing in it. So you guys brought in everything, screens, lights, everything, and we ran that for a month and a half so they could have their different kind of subcommittee 200-person meetings. But then I'll go back next month and I'll build a giant fall festival for them with pumpkin patches and this, that, and the other thing. So it's a range of different things that I still do. You know, I'll still do the occasional red carpet thing. I'll do events that are very hybrid, town hall sort of things, which again, you guys have helped me with over the years. So it's kind of a variety of things, but that keeps it interesting for me so that I'm not doing the same thing over and over again. So if somebody throws something at me, I always say, you know, I may not know how to do it, but I can figure it out, you know. So it's finding good people that if a challenge is dropped in front of me, instead of being like, well, that's not really in my wheelhouse, well, that sounds interesting. Let me see if I can figure this out with the right people, so.
Yeah, I would say this is a very resourceful group in general, so that
have to
makes
be.
sense. It sounds like your role may vary then, depending on the project.
It does. I mean, if you had to ask me, I mean, I've always kind of thought of myself into the quarterback of the thing. You know, you bring in the different people that, and groups and vendors that you need to execute something. And, you know, I'm still a company of me, you know, and I prefer that because over all of these years, I've managed to find people that are kind of the best at what they do. So the team I hire for a red carpet event is a different team than I would hire for a fabrication project or a multi-city consumer tour. And so, you know, when it comes to you, I know who I can go to and that they'll take care of it. So as long as I kind of have the right team in place, I just kind of make sure people are doing what they're there to be doing and it pulls off, so.
No, that makes sense. It actually brings me to another thought. So, you know, you guys all have different clients, you have kind of different ways to go about it. When you're first coordinating an event, like, you know, you get the gig and now you're just starting to think, all right, who am I going to bring in on this? I guess, what are the reasons you choose one company over another? You know, and maybe Charisse, we'll start from your side.
I mean, for us, we start with the goals. Every goal, every client is different. So once we really narrow down and work with the client to figure out what the goals are, when it comes to bringing in partners, we're looking for someone that is really going to add that quality that is a standard for my team and for the products that we deliver for clients. So I think that is most importantly. And, you know, I can go into some of those details. I'm sure we'll ask some of those questions later, but I think really just making sure that we're partnering with someone who is really going to bring their A game. We work so hard to make sure that the clients, that their events run nice and smooth, and really surrounding ourselves with the best of the best is important for us.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. It's true. I mean, the people you bring in represent you. And
Exactly.
that's true. It's true for us as well. Sometimes we partner with different people, and we tend to look at each project and try to determine who would be a good fit. Dan, on your side, is there anything different that you would do to kind of determine?
It's similar. You know, I look to work with people that, you know, that are just good enough at what they do that I don't have to sit over their shoulder.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and a lot of your guys that I've worked with, Ryan and those guys, it's like they get it and they know what they need to do, and I don't have to go and be like, do you know what you're doing? Because I have 3 other things to do. So I really try to seek out partners that once they got the plan, they just got it, and they're client-facing, and it pulls together nicely, because, you know, my knowledge of AV is, you know, limited to a degree. So I can kind of talk a little bit of the talk, but you want people that just kind of get it, they understand. If a problem comes up, they know how to solve it kind of on their feet, things like that, because, again, you know, my knowledge of a lot of this is limited, so I try to find people who know it and know it better than I do, so they can go in, assess, and be like, here's the plan you need, this is what'll work. So that's what I shoot for.
Okay. And I would imagine, Gail, your experience has been slightly different in that. You had multiple vendors at the Botanical Garden, and then you've had a variety of different experiences at Caramore. Anything different in that process, like how you would do that?
I mean, we do get exposed to a lot of different AV companies. We also host weddings and facility rentals, so sometimes our clients bring in their own companies that they've experienced working with. But what I'm always looking for is nice people to work with. So you guys fit the bill there. It's a very long day, you know, by the time you guys do your thing and then we do the event with the guests arriving, you know. We have to live with each other for quite a while, sometimes days. So nice people to work with, and responsible and resourceful, as you guys were mentioning, you know, that can just get the job done without too much of our input, because like Dan said, there's 18 other things happening at the same time. So
Yeah.
Well, these are good things to hear. I mean, I think that's what we're trying to show our audience. You know, it goes beyond sometimes just certain technical skills or knowing how to turn on a microphone. I mean, there's a few other important things that go along the way, because you're right, we do have to live with each other for a certain period of time. In Synchrony, it was for like a month and a half. So
It was a camp. We were at camp together for like a month and a half there.
my favorite event of the year, by the way.
Yeah.
I just want to go on record as that. But either way, let's go towards the production side, since that's where most of our team is. I guess, how do you interact? Gail, we'll go to your side. How do you interact with the production team?
So I know a lot of our conversations start at the contracting side, and so when the team arrives on site, I want to make sure they are comfortable with our venue, know where everything is, and if there's anything I can provide, which is, again, not much from the technical aspect, but, you know, I can show you where the outlets are to plug in. But to make sure that, you know, what you guys have on your run sheets are what we've discussed, and then kind of just let you know what our timeline is, if it's changed, if there's delays from our side of things, or if anything else has changed. Also, hopefully in advance, I've already let you know what other vendors might be in the same space as you at the same time, so you can work around and make up a plan to share and play nicely together in the sandbox.
90% of the time, that is true.
Yeah.
There's always that one time. But and as far as like when people come on site, are there certain rules that they may need to know, especially being in a more public type of
Sure,
environment?
I mean, working at the Botanical Garden, you know, every blade of grass was precious. So, and then at Caramore, we have a historic house. So, you know, the wallpaper and every statue that's set up, you know, has to be really respected. And so we appreciate when you are attentive to that and careful moving all the road cases and where you are plugging in or whatnot. But that's, having that respect, or having you appreciate that respect, it goes a long way for us to feel comfortable and having you in the space.
That works. That makes complete sense. Dan, your interactions with the production team? Is there a typical interaction?
There's
or-
no real typical. I mean, I find truthfully when I do these events, a lot of the clients, even those that have event people on their staff, one of the best things that I've been told that I bring to the table is a kind of a calming influence, because a lot of them, clients love to just spiral right off the planet, with over the littlest things. And it's about, managing them, and sometimes they, and I'm sure plenty of you guys can attest to this, that they don't always need to understand the nitty-gritty of what you're doing. And truthfully, the more that they hear it, the more they can be like, well, what does that mean? Well, what does that mean? It's like, let them do their thing, and I'll make sure you're calm and it gets done. But if they want to say, well, what's he plugging that into? And what's this? Then it's like, you're not here for that, So you just let these guys do their thing. And I sometimes I'm a buffer between that, because, your team goes in with a very focused approach to things, like this is what we need to do and how we need to do it efficiently. And sometimes the event planners and the people on the staff, they'll try to hold too much in their hands, and they'll feel like, well, I need to go look over that and that person's shoulder and that person's shoulder. I'm like, that's what I'm here for. You focus on what you have to do, and I'll make sure that this all runs smoothly. Because the amount of time that clients and people waste on worrying about things, and the clients that want to yell and fuss and scream about things, I'm like, just figure out how to solve it calmly, because you're wasting time right now. So I find if I'm calm and I let my teams do what they have to do, the client sees that and they just know it's taken care of. So in that regard, I as much as I can, I prep the vendors. I'm like, these guys might be a little bit, trigger happy or edgy, things like that. Just do your thing. I'll run interference and manage them, and it'll all come together. So.
Yeah, certainly each group's got their own personality as well, and
Sure.
and you can sense it, a little bit, but you don't really get the full view until you're
In the middle of
you're
it.
in the middle,
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh, it's
Yeah.
like this.
Exactly. But you react to that, and the better you can react to it, because again, having done this as long as we have, there's few things I haven't seen and problems that haven't crossed my path. So most of the time, I've either already figured out how to solve something, or I can with the right people around me. So getting worked up and hitting the panic button and stuff like that is not going to move this along any quicker.
Yeah.
Let people who are good at this figure it out and help you to problem solve and do what they're there to do, and it'll come together.
That's good. Excellent point. Excellent point. Now, Sharice, I know you have a number of people in your team.
Yep.
And so, because we interact with different people, so one person will tell us about one event maybe, and another for another. How do you think that your interaction with the production team works on a typical basis?
I think for us, it's really making sure that we provide the production team with everything that they need. At Events to Remember, we really, really put a lot of time and effort into the run of show, making sure that we have those cues in there, just to make sure that when it comes to us being on site, our team and production is dancing. You know what I mean? You guys have everything you need. We feel that comfort level. We can go deal with, as Dan mentioned, the 10 other things that we have to work on for that event. So I think more so just making sure that we're providing you with everything that you need. Having that run through is everything. Like, I hear people say, oh, I don't do a run through, and I'm like, we need a run through. It just makes us all feel very comfortable. And really just being a resource for each other. You have everything, we know, check off on our run and show, and then we're on to the next thing. And then staying in communication. Speaker goes over, someone goes rogue. These things happen. Just making sure that we're updating the production team so there's no surprises. So.
Well, that information is vital to us. We've been talking about communication for most of the day today, right? About how important it is, and not just amongst ourselves,
Yeah.
which is what we were kind of discussing earlier, but certainly with the rest of our team, which is not just us.
Yeah.
We're an extension of you guys. That's what we talk about, and we are representing you. And so if we leave trash by the front of house area, I expect to get a phone call, because we shouldn't be doing that, you know? But there's a lot of little things, right? But that's a really good point, because that information is really critical. If there were things outside, now obviously we need the events to technically go perfectly. Let's just assume that as the baseline. But what are some of the other important things to all of you guys that we bring to the table, or that you see us on site that, you know, you're really kind of looking for? And I'll leave that open to whoever would like to comment on that.
I mean, a couple of things I can think of. One, the aesthetics, right? So if you're done unloading, like, move all that stuff. Make sure that it's, and you guys do. You do a great job. But I'm just saying for the newbies, those are things that's important. Making sure that all that stuff is put away neatly. We love the music when we're all getting set up. It pumps everybody up. You know, when the client comes, just paying attention to those cues. Letting us know if there's something adjustments that we need to make, you know, keeping us informed so there's no surprises if there's something on your end that hey, you know, and you're amazing with that. I'm looking at this and it looks like this cue is here, but I want to make sure, let's have those conversations, you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, you know, you guys are amazing.
No, but aesthetics is really important.
Yeah.
You know, we just mentioned cleanliness, that's also really important. You know, those are non-technical things, and I think that's part of the discussion here today, is what else is involved and what's really important, because it's not just you guys, it's also your client.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know, Gail, anything that you
I
can
mean, I would say,
think
you
of on
know,
your side?
which probably doesn't have to be said, but being on time is really
Of
great.
course.
Well, I think it
yeah.
has to be said.
That has to be
Just
said.
Let's be
remind
clear.
us, you know, for all of us, but just being on time just so that everybody can stay calm, right?
Yeah.
You know, nothing is really being rushed through. There's time to double check whatever you wanted to double check. And that just, again, that's that first impression, showing the respect for the venue or the client that you're coming ready to go.
If we were not on time and didn't tell you, what would you think?
Truck's broken down, they're not showing up, what else am I gonna do? We've gotta modify the program.
That would be unusual, because I wouldn't, because you are so buttoned
Yeah.
up. So if something went sideways like that, I feel like you guys would be the first to ring, like, hey, we're gonna be 15 minutes behind or something like that. But again, you're typically not, to your point, is like to give you enough time to come in, properly set up,
Yeah.
test it, not rush you.
Yeah.
Because if you feel comfortable, I feel comfortable, and the
Right.
client feels comfortable.
Exactly.
I wanna stay calm, and if you're
Exactly.
conveying calmness from
Yeah.
understanding
Exactly.
what you're
So
doing. I
giving
feel
you the
calm.
time and the space and the things that you need to do what you need to do, because if you do it, it's all going to fall together. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and keeping in mind that, you know, we're on site, we're managing the pieces that we're managing, but we're reporting to the client. So if we have on our run to show that corporate AV is gonna be here at 12 o'clock and, you know, client pops by or whatever and you're not here, then they're like, another reason for them to freak out where, you know, so, I mean, you guys are always on time, but just, those are things that it's for us, but also for the client, and we wanna, they're already worried and we want to kind of keep them calm. So those are just, you know, we have to report back to them. So just keeping that in mind, that it kind of goes up the ladder.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why I think it does have to be said, because it's very important. And we've discussed that, and Rob Friedland, if you remember, was discussing some of this about timeliness and during his communication discussion. But, you know, we've always put an emphasis on that, because we know that if we show up like 2 minutes late, but we didn't tell anybody, they're kind of freaked out and then on us. Whereas if we told them, hey, we're going to be 15 minutes late, when we arrived, they're like happy as a bug to see us, you know, and we're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. No, it does make sense. You got to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And that's, it's an excellent point, you know.
And just to kind of go back, we've, as planners, worked very hard to put that timeline together because there are so many vendors, you know, you can't
Yeah.
put the dance floor, or you can't put the florals in unless the dance floor is down, and so your delays kind of compound everybody else's, and that makes it harder for everybody else that we know is coming on site too, so.
I'm sure that's complicated with loading dock schedules.
Yes.
Say the least.
Yes. We're familiar with that part, you know? There's either the laundry truck or the garbage truck but it just means we're going to be behind by 2 hours at that
Right.
point, so.
Right.
Yeah, that is unpleasant, but these are good points, and I appreciate you guys bringing them up. When we're actually, doing our work, actually handling the production, anything that comes to mind that stands out as far as what we should or shouldn't be doing? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, for me, it's what we've been talking about. Like when you let your team do what they have to do, when the client sees that they're confident in what they're doing, they're calling something, they know what their switching is they need to and stuff. The client sees that I can project as much calm as I want, but when ultimately they are going to see your team doing what they're doing, and if they know what they're doing and there's no like, what do we do? Yeah, some just unplugged. But when they see that you're confident, you're running it, they're calm, then they just know you've got it, because they don't know what you're doing. They're not going to go, did you turn that knob? They have no idea. But if they see that you're on top of it and you know what you're doing, then they're calm, like they've got it. So that's a big part, projecting that confidence and that kind of, I know what I'm doing, don't worry about this right now, go worry about your other things. I feel like that goes a long way.
Okay, that's a good point. And we've been talking about preparation and how to, to prepare ourselves. That's why we're doing the training for the skills, to put ourselves in a confident situation when we arrive on site. And of course, that really does depend on the information.
Exactly. And even when problems do come your way, still kind of attacking them without being like, oh my God, what do I do? Like you have enough knowledge and your teams have enough knowledge that if something goes a little sideways, it's okay, that went that way, fix it like this, this, and this, without bringing the whole thing to a crashing halt. And your teams, their knowledge is very deep like that. So invariably, when things come up, it's being able to kind of react to that in a confident, kind of authoritative way that, a client may look at, they've got this. Something came up with whoever's fault, but they figured it out, and we just kept moving. So that also goes a long way.
Okay. Sharice, any other thoughts on that? Like things good or bad from the production side of the room, we'll say?
I mean, pretty much everything that Dan just said. I think remaining kind of flexible because things do happen. As I mentioned, speakers go on longer than they anticipated. So really just that, I think the communication piece is so very important, for us to kind of stay in touch and just make sure that we're updating you on things that may not be exact for the runner show and vice versa. If you see something on your end that you want to bring to our attention, like a spotlight on a podium, something as simple as that, but it's like, this looks a little dark. I think we need to, I think we need more lighting here. Just those kind of things, I think, really just working together to make sure that, we're ready when it comes time, when showtime starts, that we're ready to rock and roll.
Okay, so flexibility is important.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that I think sometimes is harder in the technical mind, is flexibility. So that it's part of our discussions for the last 3 days. Let me ask you this, because this is, we sometimes get in these situations where we're asked something, and it's usually very late in the game. Nothing's an issue when it's early. It's always when it's late. They say, hey, we want to do this, and it comes from the client's boss's boss's boss, And they walked in, they said, I don't really like that there. Can we move it over there? There are times where we might have to say no. How would you guys suggest that we do that?
For me, I agree. I want to please the client and I want to say yes, but there's times you have to say no. And I think just for your team to empower the planner so we know what to tell the client. Like the reason why we can't it's not just no. They don't want to hear that, right? They want what they want. But if we do this, we have to take this apart. That's 2 hours, kind of a cause and effect. And then we can go to the client. Can't be done because X, Y, and Z. I think really, again, the communication. Yeah. Because, you try to accommodate every request, as we do too, but there's sometimes it can't be done, and you need to say no. So really just letting us know kind of a little bit of the backstory so that we can relay that to the powers that be.
So
is
not the
helpful.
technical backstory, but the story of, well, here's what would have to be done, and here's the time it may take.
And here's why we can't do it.
Here's
you
the
know?
reason we don't maybe recommend doing that,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I mean, I also find too that in working on the various projects I have with your team rarely says no. They more often than not say, well, I can't do that, but I could do this. And they don't just kind of stop in a track like, sorry, no, you know?
Never
It's like,
do
okay,
that.
I know what your client's going for. We can't do that, but maybe we could do this that kind of approximates it or gets closer to something. Then the client will hear them like, all right, they tried, they heard me.
Yeah.
They got a little closer to it. It wasn't exactly it. But that's why, that's why I love working with your teams, because the knowledge runs so deep that if I give them a last-minute problem like that, they may not, well, I can't give you that exact solution, but I could give you something close to it, or we could get near it somehow. And, that's why I keep working with you guys, because stuff comes up. And again, you've rarely ever been like, no. It's always been like, let's figure out something that'll help, or that'll get close to this if it's that important to your client. And 9 times out of 10, they do, so.
And you can do that because you've built in that planning time.
Exactly,
that
you have the
downtime
right
for
people
those
who know
left.
what they're doing, exactly.
But that's, it's something that we certainly work on, because the traditional kind of thought process in the technical world is, no, it's like very negative,
Yep.
we're like, all right, hold on.
Lot of heavy
Wasn't on the
lifting, yeah.
slip, so I don't know what
Yeah.
to tell you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, well, it's not on the slip, sorry, you didn't
Yeah,
order that.
exactly.
Like, nobody really wants to hear that, because it's just no is all they're hearing, right?
Yes.
It's like, you don't want to help me. And of course, again, you guys are in the middle of a lot of other people and systems, but, so it is something that we talk about and try to figure out other ways. And just like you were saying about the communication, if we have a sense of what they're trying to achieve, that's usually when we can go, okay, if they're trying to do this, maybe we could do that instead.
Exactly.
Because we have the resources and we have the time. And those are usually our biggest challenges, is the time and the resources, of course, so. But it's a good point, right? Because it's not really if it was 3 weeks ago, there's no issues.
Right.
It's that they just walked in and the door's open in 3
Exactly.
minutes.
Yeah.
But that's why Will's here, he's to count us in. He'll tell us when there's 3 minutes. No, very good. Are there other, like, suggestions for our team on maybe, like, what would be helpful to you guys on when they're on site? Maybe I'll send that your way, Gail. Because whatever I tell them, they're not going to listen to, so it's better if it comes from you, really.
I say, again, we've spent a long day together, but then my guests arrive. So looking alive, I think, is good, and staying professional throughout the end of the evening is important to me. I don't want to come behind the back of house booth and somebody slouching down or not paying attention or not feeling like this is the important moment. So for me, that's looking alive and
So
engaged and wanting to be there, is
engaged
good.
and wanting to be there. I think that's a pretty important thing, to be honest. Which can give very hard and long conferences, let's just say for a second, but actually still being professional from the beginning to the end.
Right.
That's interesting. I think that's a really good point.
I mean, I think for me too, is I look to your team a lot for, helping with solutions, something to make something better. Because again, I have a certain body of knowledge, but there are certain things when it starts to get technical that I may not know about, or a better solution for something. Or hey, maybe you like this way. Or maybe here's a better approach to the person who needs to stream in for this thing. Or, there's a better audio solution that I may not have thought of, because I may go in with my kind of general knowledge and explain what I'm looking for. And I love it when I hear you say, well, there's a better way to do this. Given the room, or given what you're doing on your stage, or how many people are in here, there's a better way to light. I hear what you're going for. You asked for up lights, put them up high. It'll give a better effect. Things like that I may not think about, because, like I said, I can't keep all of that in my head. So I try to find the people who are the best at it to tell me what they think will make something better. So I look for that sort of feedback and those suggestions from people who know more.
No, that's excellent, excellent point.
That's what I was going to say about the recommendations, because although as planners, we're super smart, but there's certain things that we just, we respect your opinion, that's why we partner with you. And little things, it's like, and you're great at that. I know the color scheme is, red and blue, but maybe let's go with a different light. I appreciate those things. There's certain things on the tech side, that's your world. So we kind of have this vision of this is what we want to see, but when it comes to life, it's like, oh, that's not a great color. So just giving us those little tips of really best practices on your end of what you, like, feel free to do that because it's helpful.
Okay.
Or things that you've seen at other events you've been running, keeping my annual event that can get stale year over year for the same group of people who want to keep it fresh and exciting. So if you have new ideas to bring in as far as stage design or lighting and that sort of thing, that could be part of the earlier conversations, but yeah, bringing those to the table would be great.
Yeah. Like we had a client that requested we did a fireside chat and requested a fireplace. And, we're like, should we rent? Should we do this? Should we do that? And, Joe just took care of it.
Well, it wasn't all Joe, let's be
Well,
clear.
I know it wasn't all Joe, but it was pretty awesome. So just providing solutions like that, I think, are really helpful for us.
Well, I think that comes from the variety, because just like you guys get to see a lot of different things, whether it's out of the city or a certain type of event is done a little differently. And, that variety is actually helpful because then we can bring some different ideas. And we like doing different things. There's no question. It's why we try different setups. We've literally done this event like 6 different ways in this space. And we do different backdrops almost every time. And because we're trying new technologies. We're trying, we're our own guinea pigs, so to speak, And it was certainly like that through all the pandemic as well, because we would start with certain software just to see how it would work, and we would just try it. And because we're like, well, if we don't think it's good, how can we tell somebody else to use it,
Right.
And it's always an interesting experience. But that's our role. That's what you guys all count on us for, is to kind of bring those ideas, and we appreciate that. So we take it very seriously and try and learn. And that's what everybody's here for, to try to learn new things and learn from each other as well. And we've been talking a lot about collaborating with others, and we have people that we actually have I can see one of the gentlemen in the back there. I don't even know what he's doing here because he's a Facebook employee, so I'm not sure what he's doing here. Meta, my fault. But, he was actually one of the members of the first class that we had here in 2014. And we have a number of people that have kind of been in that situation. And, we collaborate with a lot of different people, and I think that's the idea.
Yeah.
Because you need those fresh thoughts. And there's things that,
Keeps it
we just
interesting.
don't know, and we're just trying to figure it out. So we can bring it to, Caramore, or we can bring it to the next, nonprofit event, or especially when like budgets, like you have a sense of what groups are, all right, well, they're usually in this kind of range. And, I think, Dan, some of yours are a little more abstract. They may have,
Sometimes.
yeah. Because Gail has certain restrictions and limitations within the facility. And,
Yeah.
And Sharice, I know a lot of your clients and kind of their mentality on certain things. But it's all part of learning, and that's why we do this. Maybe we'll see if we got any questions in the audience, and see if we have any other thoughts coming from here. I see a familiar face out there.
You knew I was going to ask a question. Come. All right. Can you maybe describe something specific that you noticed on site at an event that went really well because of somebody in an AV position? So some sort of a specific instance that you can remember. Hopefully you can remember some positive memory of an AV person, but maybe they helped you out in an unexpected way, or they went above and beyond, or just some sort of memory to share.
For me, I can throw right out. I mean, as I mentioned, I worked with you guys a lot in the first part of the summer here up in Connecticut. There was literally a 3-day event every week for about 6-7 weeks, and each one was different. And to say that this client did not have their stuff put together, to say that these guys were getting stuff a day before or the day of, and to be able to kind of roll with that and to, to just, to take whatever was given them, even though you could clearly see it was piecemeal, and not complete, to just kind of be able to take that and then just kind of keep going and make it stay successful and not let the thing kind of collapse on itself, because again, it's not my fault, it's not your fault. The client's coming to us with bits and pieces and saying, here, kind of string this together, it's tomorrow, or it's today. And to be able to do that and to do it smoothly and not just, well, I can't do that, it's too late, that was big for me, because that happened a lot at the beginning of the summer. Each week there'd be something, because I don't think the client had planned to do all these things. So it's literally like, well, what's happening next week? Do I need a screen on the stage? Are we zooming in? Is there a cellist? I don't know what's going on, But to be able to react to that and still make it be successful when it was over, that was big for me, because, it seemed simple going into that project, but man, whew, the number of curveballs, I'll tell you. By the time we were done, you guys were like, peace out. So, but, having the patience and the ability to react like that and still roll with it when stuff comes kind of flying at you last minute, that struck me. That was pretty amazing.
That's good. That's really good. I don't know if anybody else has any other thoughts on that piece, but.
So Ryan, this is one kind of in that same vein, but it was amazing, where we had, it was a virtual event. It was like a 2-day virtual event. And we had Oprah as one of the speakers. I don't know if you remember kind of the lead up to that. It was an amazing event, but it was a lot of, it was a lot of pulling to get different pieces. Turned out amazing, but literally like at the end, I had like a big glass of wine, like ready to kind of get into it. And I think Mo was on the screen, and at the end, it was just like, oh my gosh, I felt like really, let's drink, guys. So we got through it. It was awesome. No one on the other side would know, but just all of the internal pieces that it took to get there.
Well, they're not supposed to know. That's
Yeah.
the reality, right?
Yeah.
Just like the audience at Caramore is not supposed to know the chaos that's going on. But it does happen.
And I would just say, in my NYVG days, we were doing some more simpler repeat events. So, one of the staff just kind of took the time to show me what an XLR cable was and where it would go, so I could learn some terminology and like how it all kind of functioned together, so that I could understand later when the client or somebody asked to move things somewhere else, I could also have some of that knowledge of like why that might not be the best option for right now.
Well, I'd say you learned a lot in your time over there. You were throwing words out at me. I'm like, wait a minute. You don't really know what that is. What are you talking about? No, you learned a
Try to
lot.
talk the talk.
I think you had to set those Anchor PA systems up yourself. I think that's
Some
why.
days.
Do we have another question maybe from the audience?
First, I want to say that, usually when they do training for people in this business, it's technical training. They learn how to set up equipment. So to be able to have the clients here telling you what's really important to them is rare and valuable. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I want to tie in with that, and something we've been talking about for the last 3 days is how important is attitude on job site?
Attitude. There you go.
Very important. Yeah.
Yeah, attitude comes back to that calm and that confidence that's projected. It's because the clients typically they're wound up.
Yeah.
They're running around and so again, if you come across confident, calm, we've got a plan, you threw a curveball at me, fine, solved. That goes a long way, because that translates to them being calm.
Yeah.
And so then when it's all over, even if it's successful, but they were a nervous wreck through the whole event, that's still not as successful as it could have been. But if it was successful and they saw that you had it and they're calm, then it's a successful event, because I will work with them again, whatever comes down the road, because they've got it. So I think with regards to attitude, I can't say enough about that confidence and that calm that you project out, and how far that goes.
And, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's not just between you and us, that's between each other, We're also observing how your team is interacting, behind the scenes, and want to make sure that you guys get along well, because you have to troubleshoot all those things. And that's an impression that we get too.
And know that everybody's watching, literally. It's, the clients are on us to make sure that things are running smooth. And if you're, as she just mentioned, if you're having situations between each other, or if you're coming across with an attitude, like we're, as the planners, trying to keep the calm, trying to keep things moving forward, we should be a partner. So there's like no room for an attitude, let's just get it done. So yeah, and believe me, like clients, everyone's watching, and they will, they'll say something, and then I'm calling Joe. Not really, because you guys are awesome, but that's what happens.
How did I get dragged into this? But you're right, everybody's always watching.
You mean that
Everybody's
that little
watching.
kick doesn't hide everybody? That's,
Nope. It doesn't hide, even backstage, it doesn't hide. No, these are great points. And the fact that you mentioned earlier about being professional throughout the show. Because, it used to be, especially at the conferences, some of the conferences we used to do, financial, pharmaceutical, I mean, they're super dry. It's hard to keep awake. And we'd say, look, if they're just barely breathing, that means we're having a good show. But that goes to the calmness, everything's going smoothly. But, it used to be, back then, people would have newspapers. Be like, can't use a newspaper, pal. You got to get that out of there. And now it's cell phones. So anytime a client sees you on a cell phone, what do they think, Sharice?
Yeah, like, are you not paying attention? Are you gonna miss that cue? Are you ready for that speaker slide to go up? Yeah. If you're on Instagram, you're watching a reel, like we're watching you, and it's not good.
That is universally what they think when they see you on the phone, that you are screwing around. Absolutely. Even though the reality is we have a lot of control apps on our phone now, and they may be communicating to the person right next to them, but it's about the appearance of it, right? So that's an excellent point. We got just a couple of minutes for another question.
Okay, on the mode of calmness and, you guys being basically the patch between the client and the AV unit and multiple vendors, I would just like to find out, how do you guys go about, preparing for event day? Because, something is going to happen. You expect something as a planner. How do you go about, preparing for your day to be this person that holds the fort down when it might seem like it's going crazy, and you got an auto fire over there. You got to communicate to these people. How do you not get frustrated in the midst of all of that?
It's back on you guys now.
Yeah.
We're not the ones under fire now.
For me, it's preparing myself. I've done these enough times to know that if I know going into something, all the kind of T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, then I'm confident. If there's some part of this that I still don't quite have my hands around, I'm going to show it, and you're going to see it on me. And my vendors aren't going to quite have their hands around something. So, that doesn't mean I need to go into every event with a production book that's this thick so that I know every second what's going to happen. Because again, as long as we've been doing this, and I mentioned there's few problems over the years I haven't seen or come across, that, you figure out how to quickly solve them and stuff like that. But the more prepared you can be, knowing what this vendor's doing, that one's doing, and if they all kind of follow the plan, it should all come together, like they say on the A-team, But that's how I kind of prepare as best. And I know at this point, going into something, if it's tomorrow, I'm like, I still don't quite have my hands around how that music performance is going to go. Is he going to show up on time? Is he not? Is he going to be long? Is he not going to be? Is he going to change something? But if I understand it, we all agree to it, then I'm like, all right, it's going to go like it's supposed to. So preparing enough ahead of time that when you're confident and when you're ready to go. So at least for me.
Very good. We got a minute left. Sharice, anything you want to add to that?
Everything that he said. I mean, for me, if we have a big event, I'm always working from home, and if we're ready and I know that my run and show is tight and my vendors are solid, I'm at ease. I mean, I'm checking my phone, don't call me for something that's not important because I automatically freak out inside. But yeah, if we're prepared and we're ready, then I'm ready. I'm ready to rock and roll. So it's more so the preparedness, and you're a part of that preparedness for us as the planner.
Trying not to leave anything to the last minute. Do
Yeah.
anything that can be done the day before, the week before, the wine can be delivered and sit there for a week, there's certain things that have to be done day of, but everything doesn't have to be done day of. Get that out of the way. Print all the papers.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it sounds very familiar to what we've been talking about for the last 3 days, about preparing ourselves, communicating, being flexible, having a positive and calm attitude about everything. These are things we've been trying to discuss and reinforce. Well, listen, let's put our hands together for our client panel. You guys are excellent. They've invested their time into all of us, and we greatly appreciate that. So
you.
thank you very
Thank you
much.
for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a good partner.
Well, we appreciate it. Well, we're going to wrap up our show. So thank you, everyone, for joining us who's online, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.